On January 26, 2021, Marvel.com announced the annual election of Krakoa's X-Men that will extend into Earth, oh snap, it's us, with a fan vote all-star game style to determine the final member of the first official X-Men unit of the Jonathan Hickman era. The week-long vote will run from January 27th through February 22nd, 2021, which means as you're hearing this video that voting is open. Now, next weekend, I'm planning a Krakin Krakoa live with comedian Jay Jurden to hold a draft for our full picks for X-Men rosters, but in the meantime, I thought I'd share some thoughts on the surprise vote to alter the course of X-Men history and ultimately who I have. So today, I will be talking all things X-Men election. Here we go. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to Krakin Krakoa number 151, in which I attempt to sway an X-Men election. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel or Krakin Krakoa, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting with your thoughts here on who you got for the vote. Spoilers for what's going on in X-Men may possibly follow, although I anticipate this will be a very spoiler-light coverage. All right, first off, I love this idea. I'm super excited that Marvel announced, back in the last issue of, towards the end of X's Swords, and now into, of course, Jonathan Hickman written X-Men, that they will be voting, Krakoa will be voting on the next unit of X-Men, as Cyclops and Jean Grey have established, all right, we need to be the heroes of this mutant nation. Again, I think extending this to the real world on Marvel.com and actually allowing fans to vote for the final member of the team is great. I don't think a vote, literally for the whole team, would have been a good idea at all. I think this is a perfect sort of solution where instead you say, hey, here are 10, slightly less main, right? Slightly more minor characters, although obviously many of them are quite well known throughout X-Men history. We have Armor, Cannonball, Banshee, Polaris, Strong Guy, Forge, Sunspot, Tempo, Marrow, and Boom Boom, all eligible for this election, okay? So I'm going to break the candidates down into groups, and I will dig into the ones that I think should really be in contention here for your vote, but of course, ultimately, it's going to be up to you who you want to pick. So you can go over to marvel.com/X-Men vote for the vote. Now, this week, after the announcement, Marvel did share some early voting results. We have Glob Herman here as the pontificator on the political scene, and the current projections, I gotta say, for the conversation I'm going to have, they're not looking good for my faves, right? Spoiler alert, in terms of who I think ultimately might be picked. But we have Polaris with a very commanding lead at 22%. It would seem that there's a strong Fox is the Gifted fan element that is driving Polaris into a strong lead. Banshee obviously is one of the most well-known mutants of the bunch, of course, from his Giant Size X-Men debut days. And then you go on down the list, right? So I'm going to talk about the candidates here. I think, again, this is early voting. I'm hoping there's still time to sway this, and I will explain why and how I would like to do that. So the category of they already have a home all-stars goes to Forge, Polaris, and Boom Boom. And what I mean by this are, who are the mutants, who are the options here that are most well covered by comics that are already coming out? And for me, Forge, very well integrated into the Ben Percy and often Joshua Cassara X-Force, as the sort of the Q or the tech and manufacturer for the X-Force unit on their covert ops. Forge has been a great fit. So I feel like Forge is extremely well covered within the pages of those books. I'm already getting a good amount of my Forge content that I like from comics. Polaris is really the de facto lead of X Factor as well, so from Williams and David Baldeon, Polaris has a book, okay? She is the lead, more or less, of that series and fits in really well. Now, I do want to be careful here too to say, I know that if one of the, if Polaris, for example, wins the vote and it joins the X-Men as well, that doesn't mean that character can't be an X Factor or that they won't continue telling really interesting stories involving that character. For me, it's more just to the point of there are characters here who are nominated who do not have that, right? Who do not have that kind of visibility in that storytelling already, and I would like to see more of them explored, right? So it's less about not wanting these characters on the X-Men and more about who doesn't already have a home. And for Boom Boom, that home has been New Mutants, okay? Boom Boom has had a chance to shine, especially in the Ed Brisson and Flaviano run, less so far in the Vita Ayala and Rod Rice era, but again, there is a place for all three of these characters, which to me says, cool, they're covered, they're good, we're getting good stories with them. It's less essential to me that they necessarily get our vote. Now, You've Had Your Time All-Stars for this would go, for me, to Banshee and to Cannonball and Sunspot, okay? So Banshee, again, an original Chris Claremont era X-Men. And I have to say too, like, being an X-Man seems to rarely go well for Sean. Like, it doesn't end super well. I mean, even recently in Ten of Swords, we saw Banshee go into Amenth with Summoner and Unis the Untouchable, and he gets wrecked. Like, this stuff goes poorly for Sean more often than not. I would rather see him rocking dope sweaters and teaching again, a la Generation X. I feel like that's a really good fit for Sean Cassidy. I mean, even if you run it back to the Claremont era, Banshee's one of the first to effectively, like, kind of retire from the life of the X-Men. I just feel like that suits this character more rather than him joining the team again. Now, when we look at Cannonball and Sunspot, I mean, the big thing for me is we get to vote for one character here, okay? And it doesn't make sense to split Sam and Bobby up. Like, that genuinely does not work for me in any way. I mean, also, like, Hickman loves Sunspot and Cannonball, okay? He's integrated that. He wrote a solo with them in Astonishing Tales, integrated them heavily into Avengers and New Avengers. We've already seen in his New Mutant stuff. We literally just saw in X-Men number 17, Hickman's bringing back Sam and Bobby. Like, he's gonna write Sam and Bobby stuff whenever he wants. That's gonna be in the X-Men narrative. I say leave them in Shi'ar space. They're doing their thing there. There's a plan for them there. There's no call for one of them to be on the X-Men team without the others. Leave them available for Shi'ar space cameos. I think we're more than okay with that. So that leaves us with the following options. Wait, that's odd. What am I looking at here? Oh, okay. I can't quite remember what that was about. So it leaves us with the real contenders in my book. Naturally, all the characters that are at the bottom of early voting results per Glob's reporting. Armor, Marrow, Strong Guy, and Tempo. Okay, so everyone who's at the bottom of this poll is in fact my favorite for contenders for the X-Men election. And hopefully in talking this through, we can drum up some new votes to flip those percentages. Although again, I'm not crossing my fingers or holding my breath here. Now, among the contenders, characters I do think you could do some real interesting things with on the X-Men team, Armor. Armor is already somewhat integrated into New Mutants, almost fits into that already has a home All-Stars team. Plus, like, Armor really came into her own in the Joss Whedon and John Cassaday Astonishing X-Men era, and I feel like bringing her onto the X-Men again would kind of invite similar comparisons. It would be a challenge to avoid those comparisons and potentially tread similar ground, and if you want to avoid all that, I feel like it's probably honestly just easier to try to avoid that. I kind of think she's out, okay? So that brings up Strong Guy, and Strong Guy's vote for me, like, the voting profile picture he chose is a mugshot straight up cropped from a flashback image of him murdering Rain Sinclair's mutant wolf god son, Tyr. So honestly, just all around poor campaign management makes me think he's not taking this seriously. So Strong Guy's out too. Kind of like somebody who's not taking the election seriously. So that leaves with, in my opinion, the two best options, Marrow and Tempo. Both mutants offer a degree of complexity given their histories with various mutant terror organizations, the MLF, the Mutant Liberation Front, and G-Nation, respectively, among probably others. And in my view, that makes them perfect fits to explore in the Krakoa era, where all mutants are welcome and the sins of past lives and distinctions between good and evil have been broken down and frequently obfuscated. Plus, neither is a super well-known mutant, especially in the case of Tempo, meaning Jonathan Hickman would have a lot of runway to establish who this character can be and create something new and exciting and vital within mutantdom, not only here, but like down the line for creators to play with later. Power-wise, Marrow's ability to manipulate and grow her bones is quite memorable, but for me, Tempo's ability to manipulate time is simply a more interesting prospect, kind of the way Brian Michael Bendis evolved Eva Bell Tempest over the course of his run on Uncanny X-Men. Plus, factor in Heather Tucker, aka Tempo, ensures a black woman on the X-Men, especially with Storm heading off into space, to corners of the cosmos we don't totally know yet. And it's also like this added benefit of prioritizing diversity where needed. I think that helps out this X-Men unit a lot, and it is something that will pay dividends down the road. Plus, get this, one of Tempo's last stories prior to appearing on Krakoa and aging whiskey for Sebastian Shaw, which, good grief, what a waste, Tempo was killed during the Mike Carey written Age of X storyline. Now, this is like an alternate reality created by Legion. There's so much you can do with this and with tying back to the Age of X storyline. Now, at the end of this too, like, Rogue absorbs essentially Tempo's essence. She absorbs her memories and kind of becomes this legacy character remembering these mutants. So, like, for a while, Tempo like lived through Rogue. There's a lot of really interesting elements you can play with here. Again, like a character that died in an alternate reality created by Legion, where Legion was imagining Moira was telling him what to do. that should sound super relevant to this era of X-Men because it is, okay? And it doesn't mean it's like guaranteed to get brought up, but we know Jonathan Hickman likes the Mike Carey run of X-Men. We know it's, got some potential here. I think this is a really cool touch point, and it's why I think Tempo is the best pick for the new X-Men in this final roster spot. There's just the most interesting stuff that can happen. So votes here are going to run through February 2nd. We have time to flip this, but we're going to have to vote and vote hard. Again, Tempo is not doing super well at 7.57% of the vote, trailing the leader here, Polaris, at 22%. So first off, this is all in good fun. Whoever you vote for, do you, right? Like, whoever gets picked here, we're going to have good, fun X-Men comics to come. Cast your vote at marvel.com/X-Men vote. Get your votes in. For me, it's Tempo. I think that Tempo's a great pick. I think Mero's a good second choice. But again, whoever they pick here, I'm sure there will be interesting X-Men stories and comics down the road. Let me know. Who do you think should be voted for? Why? Maybe you just have a favorite. Maybe you're just like, yeah, I actually always liked Polaris. I want to see more from her. Again, like daughter of Magneto, super powerful daughter of Magneto, not the worst thing to have on an X-Men squad. Plus, Polaris is really coming into her own. Lorna Dane is a character in the pages of X-Factor. Now, I will point out, like, she's kind of hypnotized at the moment. Not necessarily the best thing to add to your team, but, I don't want to sway the vote too much other than to say, vote Tempo, please. Hashtag vote Tempo. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And as always, this is Krakin Krakoa. I'm Dave. You can find me at patreon.com/Comic Book Herald for ways to support the site and the endeavors here. You can find me at Comic Book Herald pretty much anywhere on social. Look for Best Comics Ever and My Marvel This Year podcast for more from me. So thanks, everybody, for listening to Krakin Krakoa. Again, don't forget to share who you're voting for in the comments. In the meantime, enjoy the comics.